Grinders, welcome to the Lineup HQ Pre-Lock Grinders Live Crunch Time show. I have no idea what they named this show, but we have Lineup HQ up on the screen. I got Tyler Tamboline here. Tyler, you normally on Sundays for NFL do this type of show where we show off Lineup HQ for the people that may not have it. You should. Yes. You should sign up to Rotogrinders Premium. Click on the link in the description below, and you get $10 off your first month. But I mean, this is the main screen that me and you look at. Like, I have this loaded up like all day for all sports every day. It has all the projection, it has all the numbers that we need. I'm able to do little experiments here. What does this guy look like in this lineup? And Tyler, on Sundays, I mean, essentially you're showing off like how you're building lineups for multi-entry builds in NFL.
Yeah, I think that's the key. You talked about it. You and I did the preseason show. It's a little late for that now if you guys are just catching up on week 17, but never too late to go back and check it out if you want to learn more about Lineup HQ. Typically, Blender, we're talking about, some things, especially on a slate like this, that maybe you could do to be a little bit different. You've talked about it plenty in the Theory of DFS, both your podcast and audio masterclass, which another thing folks should check out there. It's great. I've looked at it all, and I think that that's the key, right? Is how can we build and be unique without being stupid, as you would like to say.
Right. I mean, I say play wherever you want, but that's a facetious way of saying pair the lineup with the contest that you're playing. So if you're playing these large field, we have a millie, we got a $20 millie, we got a $3 play action. Those are humongous field contests, and it's only a 4-game slate, so there aren't that many choices. So to get different, it's going to take you a lot. But if you're playing smaller field stuff like today, I'm playing the spy. I'm playing the power sweep. These are contests in the thousands of entries. Yep. So I know that I don't necessarily need to find, the fourth wide receiver on a team that manages to catch an 80-yard touchdown, because it's quite probable that you may not even need that guy to win in those field contests. So it's play whoever you want is not a technicality. Yeah, play whoever you want. Let's go down to the bottom. Reggie Gilliam, go play. I mean, you can. Right? Just if you're playing a 1% owned guy, you could build the chalk around it. And on this slate, this 4-game slate on DraftKings and FanDuel, they always make on these playoff slates, they make, and like Thanksgiving, these short ones, they make the pricing so it feels like you could build a good lineup. So like any lineup that I build feels like it makes sense. But from my large field brain, sometimes when things make too much sense, I go, well, why wouldn't there be 70 of these types of lineups in it? So, right. So Tyler, what are you doing? I know we have 4 games. We have 2 games today, 2 games tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of late swap possibilities. But what's the main consideration that you're going into today in trying to be different from an overall perspective?
Yeah, I've talked about it a little in the past. I do like using this tool, especially for, I call it virtual hand building, but you and I have talked about it in the past where you're using it to build out your lineups. Then you can actually look at them. You can save them. You don't necessarily, or pretty much never, you use the first lineup build and just say, okay, export, good, I'm done. That's not what we do with this tool. So I'm definitely looking in, my stuff, like the $20 stuff, large field. I'm looking for at least one, if not 2 plays, maybe under 5%, right? So I'm trying to look at it from that perspective. I'm making sure I'm stacking up. I'm going as far as 4-game setups with maybe quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, and then using somebody else in the flex, whether it's another pass catcher or a running back from the game. So I'm not afraid to get a little bit overstacked, if you will, where some people will shy away, depending on the stack that I'm using. And then I'm also looking at just the quarterbacks. We know you kind of mentioned it there, Blender, with the setup of the pricing on these usually 3-game slates we see for like Thanksgiving and certain ones, but for the playoffs, it's a 4-game slate. We finally get here from DraftKings. We've all been waiting for it. So going with that, the pricing's almost like a major for PGA, where every lineup can look good if you build it accordingly. So I'm looking at those lineups and then seeing, okay, which ones stand out to me as maybe they're going to actually have a chance at being unique. To your point, some of them you look at and you go, well, everyone's going to have that lineup, so I'm just going to move this piece here or that piece there. And then I got no problem leaving more money than usual on the table, because it's something as simple as maybe a Diggs lineup becoming a John Brown or a Gabe Davis type lineup, and just leave that money on the table and hope that's a better 1-for-1.
Right. What I'm doing right now to research the slate, I tend to get different by overstacking, right? Super stacking, because a lot of people shy away from that type of build. And we see with Eric Beimfor's premium article, if you were to get it throughout the course of this NFL season, if you're a premium member, you'd see that people may stack the quarterback with 2 pass catchers, but they rarely stack them as much as 3 or 4. And a lot of times people don't stack the quarterback with the running back, even if the running back's not a pass catcher. So those are ways to get different and still use most of your salary. So what I did in Lineup HQ right now is I went to the quick game stacks, primary quick stack feature, and I just put in 1 quarterback, 3 teammates, doesn't matter what position they are, and then 1 running back, wide receiver, tight end. So it's basically a 4-1 type of stack, and just run 100 lineups. Just to see, I'm using the blitz projections from yesterday. So Cardi has not updated them. And we just found out that Cooper Kupp will be inactive today. Okay, for anyone out there, Cooper Kupp will not be playing today. So obviously that bumps up Woods. It bumps up everyone. I mean, Reynolds, Van Jefferson, Everett, Higbee, all of them. So we'll get into that in a little bit, but I ran 100 lineups. So just based on the blitz projections, I could see like it wants Michael Thomas in like 100% of them, but
Yeah.
It's Michael Thomas at home in the dome. It's Derek Carty.
I was just gonna say, is that the blitz projections? Exactly, like you said, it is. Derek Carty's always going to have that bumped up, but it makes sense. So I think that's an interesting one at 6,700, right? You got to play there that a lot of people are going to naturally go to, but like you said, when you're using these projections and building out 100% of the time, he's in there.
Right. You could see that based on these projections. If you were to just go by median and super stack 1 quarterback, 3 teammates, and a run back, it loves the Saints from a price perspective.
It loves that game, realistic. I mean, it definitely loves Drew Brees more because these guys in these price tags can just drag it along very easily, whether he's got a noodle arm or not, or people choose to believe that these guys can definitely do work for him at that price tag. But it's very interesting that you look at the ownership on Mahomes there was like 2%. And the rest of it's all flying up to that Tampa Bay New Orleans game. So that leads me to something interesting too that you talked about earlier, Blender, and I'm definitely doing this, but I've got about 75 lineups in the $20 today. I'm splitting the difference on max entering. I'm just going halfway. I don't want to get analyzed when people go and look at it afterwards. That's a new thing this week, right? If you put the 150, you're going to get into the analyze of bro, and then you don't want to be shown up there. So just a little tidbit there. But I would say for me, I'm definitely leaving some lineups blank in the sense of I'm ignoring the first game completely, right? The Rams and Packers game, I'm definitely having some lineups that I've got flexibility. I've got some optionality, things that I can do. And I'm just making sure I've got nobody from that first game at all, because I think it could be a very defensive game, a tough game for both quarterbacks. These defenses are legitimate and it's the playoffs. So I definitely think we could see an under there and a little bit lackluster for fantasy purposes.
But I mean, if you notice, this is what I analyze in Lineup HQ. We're doing the Lineup HQ show, so I'm going to show you some stuff that I do in Lineup HQ. I take a look at, for instance, the top 100 lineups that I can make, just based on projection. This doesn't include, I put in the correlation of the super stack with the 1 run back. The top median is 147.5. The 100th lineup, if I scroll all the way down, is 143.5. So the difference between 1 and 100 is 4 points. So it's not all that. That's less than a touchdown. So, and touchdowns are the most varying aspect of NFL DFS. Yeah. But if we take a look here, it's like, in the top 100, Patrick Mahomes stacks is only 2%. Yeah, but if I go and I click just on the 2% here, I could just see my Patrick Mahomes lineups in this build. The top one is 145.26. So it's 2.25 off the top one with Breeze. And it has Mahomes, CEH, Hardman, Kelsey. Because obviously the reason why the Mahomes stacks don't come up high median wise is because the Chiefs are expensive, right? Hill, to stack Mahomes, CH, Hill, Kelsey, like you almost need to throw in a Hardman or a Robinson or even CH or Lev Bell or something like that in order to get your median up. But of course, with the Chiefs with a 33-point total, implied total, like the Chiefs are the top targets. It's just a matter, Tyler, of are the players gonna reach their ceiling? And from my perspective, I think that Mahomes plus Hill plus Kelsey is I'm not going to be using it because you have to make so many sacrifices in the rest of your lineup that you need all of the Chiefs' points to go through all three of those players. And have we seen historically that Hill and Kelsey are actually negatively correlated to ceiling? That I'm much more likely, if I play a Mahomes stack, is to do something like Mahomes and Hill with Robinson, right? You throw in a Robinson, you throw in a Hardman, you throw in a Lev Bell instead of one of Hill or Kelsey. I don't know if you're making that group rule in your build, but I mean, if you're not, I mean, are you making Mahomes, Hill, Kelsey stacks? Like, who are you fitting in the rest of your lineup?
Well, that's the thing. Actually, you bring up a great point because it's almost twofold here, and it's interesting because I think if we go look at ownership, we know Mahomes has the majority of it. He's got 30%, but there's a double down here. If you go with Hill and Kelsey, you've capped the rest of your lineup, and you're also not very unique because that's what most people are going to try and do. So you'd have the same punts as everyone else. But if you just go back and look at the lineup that you had there, you don't have to go back on screen, but you saw what you had within that lineup. It's going to take a lot for that to get there as well. You need CEH to get there. You need Hardman to get there. You need all of these guys. Now, it's better if they do because way less people are going to have that build, which makes it better for overall, in my opinion. But I'm saying, to your point, it's almost those lineups are tough to get after, yet he's going to be 30% owned. Lineups starting with Mahomes. And then also, how many of those aren't going to be super stacked, which, like you said, Eric Bimefor has shown, we've both seen in the past how important that is on slates like this. So for me, it's a little bit tough to get to that. I actually tagged up Baker Mayfield. I like that game. I like that atmosphere. I think there's no way that they're up, and I think they're going to have to pass it a lot. And if you look at some of those builds, you can see that Higgins, Landry, Hooper, all these guys not quite nearly as popular, and they still fit into that same build. And then you can get your Hill across or your Kelsey across on the other side. You can even use Kelsey in the flex spot and treat him like a wide receiver with Hooper in the same lineup. So I'm just saying there's other ways you can go about getting pieces within that game without having to fit yourself into those two scenarios you and I just mentioned, where both are pretty uncomfortable. And I know people are sitting there saying, well, it's not that uncomfortable with Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey, feeling pretty good. But look at the rest of your lineup, and then remember that even if it does get there, you're probably on the same build setup that everybody else is. And that's going to make it a little bit more difficult to get to the top. Blender, I had a question for you here from the chat. I think it's a good question. See your thoughts on it. Overall, I know it can go either way, but said, wouldn't you be more inclined to play the Packers-Rams game just because it's more contrarian? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you can. I mean, it's a matter of what your overall strategy is. If I'm super stacking, that game is very difficult to super stack unless you're doing it with the Rams, because Rodgers, Jones, Adams is just so expensive. I mean, it's more expensive than the Chiefs pretty much, or just as expensive as the Chiefs. And the Packers have a touchdown less implied total. So yes, you're getting an ownership discount, but I don't think you're getting such a ridiculously ownership discount that if you're super stacking, like I think the Packers, if you're single stacking, you want to play Rodgers Adams, go have fun. You want to pair him up with Tanyan in the tight end spot? Okay, great. If you want to play, Goff is going to be the lowest owned, is the lowest implied team total. But if you want to play a Goff, Akers, Woods, Everett, I mean, for large field, I think that's doable. I mean, this is how I research. If you look on the screen, so like I locked in Hill and Kelsey based on my super stack setting, just to see what the top lineups would look like. So you see, you have to basically play Higgins. You have to punt in one wide receiver spot, punt to tight end, right? Even with Kelsey, here's one with Hardman, Gus Edwards. You would need in there, right? Which I mean, these are doable based on the ownership that's here. But if we want to take a look at, let's say we want to do that Rodgers, Adams, Jones stack. So I'm just going to lock in Adams and Jones. So based on my settings, this is going to have to be a Rodgers stack because That's the only way two of the same player could be in the lineup. So I'm gonna, instead of doing 100, I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna do 40 just for time's sake. A lot of times I would do 150. Sometimes I would do 300, but it takes a while. So for 40 lineups, look at the median, right? I always compare it to the top median that you could build, which is 145.5. So in order for me to play a Packers super stack with Akers as the run back is more likely going to happen, I have to sacrifice about 8 points in median.
I think it was almost 10. I think it was 10 too, because I think it was 147. The best
147. Okay, so 10.
10.
So if I'm sacrificing 10 points in median, so if we go back to the first build, this is a lot of stuff that I show off on the pregame show at 11 in the morning most days. So yeah, so here's 147.5, like you said, Tambo, and 171 is the ownership sum, which is just a guideline, right? You have to look individually. So 171, 147. Let's go to build 3 with the Aaron Rodgers. It's actually higher owned. It actually has a higher ownership sum, and you're sacrificing 10 points in median, right? So maybe I'm going to look for something that's lower owned. Low 204, 191, 190. Like I start to get the sense that I'm sacrificing a lot of median and not gaining anything in ownership, because these lineups are going to be built in this way. But let's say we do it the other way. Let's say we use the Rams, for instance. So we're going to plug in Woods and Akers to make that kind of super stack. And I'm going to build 40 lineups. This is what I consider research. Most people look into matchups, but everything to me is in the projections. Once I have the numbers, all I'm doing is trying to find plus EV lineups. Okay, so here's the Goff one, the top one based on, this is before, the update for Cup isn't in. Cardi's going to probably have to put that in soon. So this is before that. So we have Goff, Akers, Woods, and Adams as the run back, which makes sense. So it's 139.15, but still we're not really gaining all that much ownership in this. We're really not gaining 200, 187, 200. But if we take a look at that, for instance, the Patrick Mahomes stacks, right? It's a little bit lower. I mean, we're still having around 180, here's a 203, 202, but they project so much better. I mean, 143. I mean, essentially, here's the Packers, about the same ownership, lower median. Rams, about this, I mean, lower median, it's about the same ownership. So, like, I'm looking here and going, like, how do I get different? I mean, it seems like the Chiefs, they have a high enough ceiling that between these three, yeah, you may think that the first game is going to be lower owned, but is it going to be low enough owned? Because the only way that you could do it is if you're going to super stack like this and not play Akers, right? Because Akers is going to be like 35% owned. Or play the Packers and don't play Devontae Adams. But to me, it's just like how much projection are you giving up for that? If I'm going to fade an Akers and try to build, my median is going to be like 20 points below, and I'm only going to sacrifice maybe 20, 25% of total ownership. So yes, in large field, you could sacrifice. Like if you want to play this type of lineup in large field, go for it. But for the contest, the smaller field stuff, like I just don't think you could see here just by the numbers based on our projected ownership that you're just not.
We talk about this all the time too, though. It happens in golf as well. This guy's only going to be 2% owned. I'm going to roll him. I get that you can play anyone. You've got your moniker as well. Play whoever you want. I understand it, but not always. And this is what you've talked about in the past too. Is not just because someone is a diamond in the rough to you at 1% ownership, it doesn't mean they're a good play. It's all in how you build and what you're looking at. You've just shown the research portion to say why it may not be the best thing. I was saying I'm leaving lineups behind because what my take is that everybody has Akers, the Rams D. They're like, go look at your lineups right now. I guarantee it. Go look at your lineups on DraftKings, click over to the lineups tab, organize it if you've got our plugin. If you don't get it, and start looking at your ownership percentages of Akers and Jones and the defenses in that game and all of that, and just look how much you have. If that happens or busts, I now have lineups that are upside to you because I've got 10 lineups that have nobody from that first game in it. Some of my lineups are just Jones, Green Bay defense. Some of my lineups are Rodgers, Adams, Woods. That's it. So that I'm off the run game there and got just the pass game, but not in a super stack. So there's ways you can go about it to be different. I'm just saying that's why it's not just play the lowest owned game and hope that things go your way. There's high likelihoods that it won't always go your way. So it's a risk we're taking, like Blender just said, in some large field stuff. Not something I'm super excited about on this particular 4-game slate.
Right. I just showed here. I did the research. I locked in Landry, I locked in Hooper to see what these Brown super stacks look like. And you could see, look at the median compared to like the Packers. Like I'm going to go to the Packers. The top one is 137, right? The Browns, the top one is almost 10 points higher at the similar ownership. And you're still playing the Chiefs, right? You're still playing Tyreek Hill or Kelsey in the lineup. You're still getting Michael Thomas. You can still
go to lineup 3 for a second.
Adams.
Look at lineup 3. Look at lineup 3 right there. Look at the slate breakers of Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelsey, Kareem. Like there's guys here that have massive upside. And I get that one's got a little bit of ownership and it's capped out. I'm just trying to show you like what you can do with these builds. And there's ways to get unique, no problems. I'm just saying that lineup is very correlated, makes a ton of sense, and has 3 guys that could break the slate built in. So I got no problem with that. And that's why I'm more inclined to do that than I am to look for this diamond in the rough what if scenario.
Right. And let me do what's going to be a popular stack today. If you're going to super stack, is going to be like Singletary Diggs. So the Allen stack. So I'm going to run 40 just based on these projections. Obviously, if you have different projections, they'll be slightly different numbers. So I'm going to run this 142. So it's the highest. So you get Allen, Singletary, Diggs with Mark Andrews. Probably Mark Andrews or Marquis Brown would be the run back. So like you're going to be in the 140-ish range, but you're not gaining any. Like the ownership still ends up coming out. Right, still massive ownership. So
yeah,
like to me, I take a look at the Browns and I go 4 points higher, slightly less ownership, slightly. And what you could do in lineup HQ also, for instance, let's say you want to play an Allen lineup that isn't going to be as owned as a blunt tool, Maybe I'm going to say, is there anything under 180? Because we saw a lot in the 200s and the 190s. Let's try to get 180 max time. And then you could just set it in lineup HQ. So you say, nope, I just want to know the best 40 that are under 180 and see what players are in there. We may look and go, yuck, right? Okay. Here, you're giving up a bunch of points, 139. But here, you take a look, Dawson Knox, right? 2%. 6% Gus Edwards as the run back. See, to me, this is a large field GPP lineup, right? Because you have a 6% guy and a 2% owned guy, and you're still playing like the stone dead chalk around it, and it's correlated. So I'd much rather, if I'm going to give up the similar projection, maybe a couple of points lower, I'm gaining more ownership.
Give me something for giving it up. Yeah, give me something back, give in return. So that's what it is, give and take, and you're getting the ownership back there. And that's a nice little present to have for a large field tournament there, Blender. So I don't mind that at all. And that's sort of how I would look at it, specifically building with some of these more popular quarterbacks where it still makes some sense. I think it's, the Gus Edwards thing, players aside here, the certain guys are popping, that's going to make it work. But like you said, at least you're getting something back for the small discount you're taking as far as the overall projection is concerned.
Right. And this is me building with super stacks, right? Because obviously there's only so many combinations because you're trying to play a quarterback with 3 teammates. Once you're not building super stack wise and you're just going like 3-1 or, 2-1, obviously the combinations are a lot more, right? Because you're taking a lot more one-offs. But for me in large field or even small field, I still think like my 5 lineups are all going to be super stacks. Like on these types of slates, that's all I play. And I try to actually pair the running back and quarterback together because less people do that. So I'm able to then spend most of my salary and I could still be unique or at least unique enough that it's for me, that it's worth it. That we get into under 10 dupes type of range for large field, right? You have to treat it kind of like showdown. But a lot of times we see on these short slates, the 3 or 4 game slates, that the lineup that wins first place in the Millie or whatever the largest field contest, you take a look at and you go, oh, this looks sensible. And it's a solo winner, right? Like you look and you go, oh, this looks sensible. It's just that they left $2,700 on the table, right? Instead of playing Diggs, they played Beasley in that spot and they won. Or they played 4 guys from the same team and they like stacked the complete game. I mean, we saw that last week with the Steelers and the Browns, and they just said, give me all of them. And it's like, well, that's risky. Well, yeah, you have to risk it for the biscuit. So like
Tampa Bay the week before that, when Brady
right.
sat after the first half, and every dude in the lineup got there. So, talk about play all the dudes. The chat wants to know, Blender. Here's an interesting one. I think it's more than fine. Obviously, at 49.9 is definitely okay. But I think someone shipped the 3-game slate a couple weeks ago with 5,600 left on the table, and it still had a 4-man stack in there. So what are your thoughts on that? Or do you want to show off any of that? And we can look at it from a research perspective, maybe leaving a bunch of money on the table. And then of course you can leave 100 on all your lineups, no problem here, and get different that way. But I don't, more of what Blender was showing is what I care about than that. I've got no problem leaving $2,500 left or more. Even.
No, I don't. Right. I don't. But most of the time on these slates with the soft pricing, like, I don't mind spending all the salary as long as I'm getting different in some regard. Like, I don't mind playing the defense against the offense because of, pick six and the team gets the ball back. A lot of people don't do that. There are ways to get different without leaving 5,000 on the table. I mean, you can. I mean, but on this, when it's such soft pricing, like, why would I want to leave 5,000 on the table and not play Michael Thomas or Alvin Kamara in that? I'm going to play Dawson Knox in the flex instead of Alvin Kamara. Like, in the long run, the projection is so dramatically higher that I still think I'm unique with the Kamara lineup. So, like, why should I be? I don't think I'm gaining enough by leaving 5,000 on the table in most lineups.
Well, I just want to talk for just 2 seconds on that, because I think it's much simpler and easier that as people take it way too far. Like, I see people even, gloating about it, that I've got 150 unique lineups. And then you go and look and they used 45 to 47K in all of their builds. Well, of course you've got 150 unique lineups. It doesn't mean you're going to win because of that. There still is projections. There still is things that matter. Could it happen? Absolutely. Is that something to run around and talk about? To me, not so much. Sometimes it's literally as easy as last week, taking your $4,600 John Brown and leaving $600 on the table and playing Gabe Davis, and boom, voila, you've got it. You don't need to go and leave 6,000 just to say you're unique. That was a unique enough lineup or build. He got there over the guy that was more owned in John Brown. John Brown puts up a 0, and there you have it. So it's sometimes people just look too far to go the extra step just to have that conversation piece, when realistically you got to build smart still, right? Work smarter, not harder. That's what they say, isn't it?
Right. Well, it's the 3 levers of DFS: projection, correlation, and leverage. But projection comes first. I mean, I could lock in. I can play a lineup of Malcolm Brown, Des Bryant, Scotty Miller, and Lee Smith and leave 12,000 on the table. I will be unique, but my lineup projection is going to be 50 points lower than everyone else's. I mean, like, I'm not going to be able to make that up with leverage. That's like way too much, even for large field, that you might as well throw it. Yes, it's unique, but you might as well throw it in the garbage. Right, because you're unlikely to Scotty Miller 150 yards, Des Bryant with 100 and a touch. Like, when are all those things going to happen together with less than 1% ownership? It's not worth it. Then there are ways to, like you said before, there are ways to get unique without being stupid. You can, if you wanted to play one of them, you just say today's the Scotty Miller day. Okay, that's fine, but like, then you're unique enough. He's going to be less than 1% owned. Build the rest of your lineup like as best
whoever
as
you want
can.
at that point.
Play whoever you want at that point. That's the whole phrase. Play whoever at that point, play whoever you want. But I mean, if you're going to just combine those together, I'm going to play Dion Yelder and I'm going to play Daryl Hodge, and then I'm going to just stack. I mean, like, yes, you'll be unique, but you imagine, like, I'm going to optimize with this, right? I put those guys in: Daryl Hodge, Scotty Miller, and Dion Yelder. Your projection is 124. It's almost 23 points lower than optimal. Like, good luck. Good luck trying to win in anything where basically Michael Thomas's median score is what you have to make up already in leverage. Like, just you could build better. You could build better.
Well, look at that lineup. Had like Adams, Thomas, Kamara, and Jones. And I know Mahomes is in there, but we just showed you get the quarterback opposite of Mahomes, where if Mahomes has a great game, Baker could as well. That's typically highly correlated. And then we had 3 other studs in that lineup without going to Yelder and Hodge and all these guys that you just plugged in there. And our median was still 142 or 140 or something against 147. So just goes to show, right? It doesn't take all that to get there. So love that. Love that you're showing that off. I don't know if there's any more questions directly, more player questions, Blender, and talking about sort of the Saturday only slate. Any thoughts on that, maybe?
Oh, well, if you're playing the 2-game slate, that's 2 game. Yeah, it's actually 2-game slates are tougher than showdowns. Like, 2-game slates actually have more duplicates because you don't have the captain spot. So you have to play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to play 9 spots in your lineup, and you don't get the 1.5x multiplier that could switch depending on what you play. So in order to get unique on the 2-game slate, like, good luck with that. I mean,
it's pretty tough, and it's
right.
FanDuel, especially if you're looking at it. It basically builds itself when you go look at the lineup and just start plugging in the pieces of who you think would be in there, and you can see it come out in the end what it looks like, and then you'll have to sort of make your pivots and decisions based off of that for anything else that you're playing. But like you said, it does get a little bit more difficult because there's easily enough plays just to make that lineup work and fit, and that's what everybody ends up on. So being unique and getting off that common build is really all I could give for advice for that. Lots of guys that you can use within these games. I think now with the Cup news coming out, maybe some people don't change your lineups. Not that they're leaving Cup in. I'm saying maybe they don't add someone else in, or maybe you don't have to. I'm just saying that's sort of one key piece. And then looking at it from the Baltimore Buffalo game, I think people, want to talk besides just lineup HQ is the weather is the conversation. But on a 2-game slate, I'm completely ignoring that because of that's where it's like way less to be likely in my lineups as a consideration versus the 4-gamer where I have these totals on Sunday and these big games back and forth that I can go focus on a little bit more in that sense.
Right. And also late swap for these slates is so paramount. We don't have the news with like, is CEH going to play? Doesn't matter either way. I mean, like, if you want to play him, right? A lot of times the Chiefs don't necessarily, use their running backs all that well. But another way to go, if you're playing multiple lineups, that I plenty of sharp players do, is they build like almost like a pyramid type lineups. They'll build 150 lineups, but they'll break them out. So let's say you're going to break them out into 30s, right? So 5 different sets of 30. One set would be stacking the first game, okay? Which is basically, 6 players from your super stacking, whatever. And then the other 120 are taking 1 or 2 pieces, one piece from the first game and hoping that that's the piece that you need. And then once you have that piece, then you could start building your lineups throughout the 2 days. So like, let's say you're going to play one lineup with Alan Lazard, one lineup with MVS, one lineup with Adams, one lineup with Aaron Jones, one lineup with Jamal Williams, one lineup with Van Jefferson, one lineup with you're just basically, I'm going to tell a bunch of lineups with one of the guys from the first game. And then if we have MVS goes, 4 for 157 and 2 touchdowns. And it's like, well, if you don't have MVS, you're not going to win the GPP. Like, then you take those lineups and like, okay, how could I build chalk around this? And then you look at your Adams lineups with the snowflake and go, how could I get different over there? You're not going to win the GPP, but maybe you get the min cash. So because we have all 4 games at 4 different times, especially since the first game is going to be one of the lower owned games, if you could find the piece that is the flame emoji 20+ point game out of nowhere, especially at the prices. If Adams has a 40-point game, that's what you'll need. But Adams 23 ain't going to do much for you. But if you get the Jamal Williams or the Josh Reynolds 100-yard game, like, then you don't have to decide. Fill in a dummy lineup. Like,
that's all it is.
Just put in Josh Reynolds and then whoever's not in that game and in the other 3 games, and you'll just decide later. That is a viable strategy.
Oh yeah. Like a 7x7 uses up 40, you got your lineups that you're setting up. You could have 7 guys from the first game that you're using randomly. And now you've got 7 opportunities to build with your remaining 100 lineups that you can go and put whoever you want in there from each game stack and still have leftover lineups. But now you've got 7 angles for each guy. If they happen to be the optimal person that you require, then that's the case. So I think, like you said, there's other ways to go about it to still get different and have opportunities. But if you've got multiple lineups. If you don't, like you said, you've talked about this already earlier, but know the contest you're in and build accordingly towards that, right? What's the buy-in? What's the field size? What's that going to look like? And then build your lineup against that.
Right. And that's what I do the research. I mean, my research, and just like showing off lineup HQ, I do these builds. I do this for the classic slate also. This is how I end up getting on, like, oh, why am I having so much Drew Lock today? Like, it's just like I go through these and go, wow, like I would have never known that these Baker Mayfield lineups actually project pretty darn well, right? And I was considering playing Chiefs and maybe getting different with the DeMarcus Robinson or something like that. But I'm like, Well, I mean, just based on the numbers, I can't argue with the numbers. I'm a numbers person. So if the numbers say that based on the blitz projections, at least, that these lineups project better than the Chiefs lineups because of their price, then why shouldn't I flip the script and play? Baker's going to be single digit owned, right? This type of stack combination with Hunt, Landry, Hooper, probably throwing Higgins in there somewhere, right? There's got to be a Higgins lineup here somewhere. Yeah, Higgins, Landry, all three of them with Cam Akers and Aaron Jones and Michael Thomas. I mean, what's wrong with it? Like truthfully, what's wrong with this lineup? Other than the fact that, maybe the Browns, are three receivers going to get there?
Yeah, you don't know, but you know what most people would say is wrong with that lineup, Blender, and I love that it's this way, is that Akers is going against his defense, but it's a 4-game slate and it doesn't matter. So, you can have 3 guys against your defense here on the slate, in my opinion, and not be a big deal. So it's just an example of showing it off again, where that lineup actually has nothing too crazy, but it's got a way lower ownership projection, still projects well, nice, built correctly in our opinion, versus what we're trying to build for on a slate like this. And whether it works out or not, we'll find that out later. We don't get to know the answers in advance, or we'd all be huge winners. The point is, are we building to try and get ourselves to that position? And that's what we're showing here with Lineup HQ and with what Blender's showing off here.
Right. Look at this lineup. This lineup makes total sense. Maybe I'm playing this lineup. Baker, Hunt, Landry, Hooper, Hill run back. I get Chalk Diggs. Right? Ravens defense, which I don't mind because they pick 6 and the Bills get the ball back. It's Josh Allen. You never know.
Sacks, Josh Allen, sacks, man.
Right.
Sure.
You get Chalk Akers in there. You get Chalk Michael Thomas. Like, what? Tell me what's wrong with this. This is, there you go. Super stack lineup with Chalk, and you get under 200 ownership sum. I mean, you may be duped. This lineup could be duped maybe a handful of times in large field, but for small field, maybe this is the lineup that maybe I'm playing this lineup in the power suit today. Maybe I'm going to save that. I'm going to click on the heart button. I'm telling you what I'm playing now. This will be in the $150 power suite. I fall in love. Here you go. And I'm fading the first game. So hopefully, no, am I? No, I'm playing.
No, nobody is. I said, go look at your lineups. Nobody, watch and see. Everyone's got Akers or Jones or Adam. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's funny to see it out there. Like you said, anybody who's playing multiple lineups, who's played for a long time, will absolutely have lineups with 0 guys from the first games, where they can just leverage that and use that as in itself. Because most of these lineups will have at least something go wrong in most cases. You can't always say that, but it's always an option. So that's why I like to have that out.
Right. If you're in the power sweep, I hope no one watching. Don't dupe me, bro. Right.
I'm in it. Should I dupe him?
No, don't dupe me, bro. That's what Overzet says. Don't dupe me, bro.
Don't dupe me, bro.
Play it in a smaller field.
The key is always don't dupe me if you scoop me, because in head-to-heads, it's a pain in the ass to go and get that rake back. So
no, it isn't.
No, I mean, you got to
do it automatically.
Oh, that's right. It's FanDuel where you got to send an email and pray. Yeah. Hey, DraftKings, let's go.
But right. I know that for a lot of people that how they play DFS is not necessarily the way that we're showing off. That's why this is the Lineup HQ show, and not that this is who we think is going to do well type of show. But this is the way that I think for the pregame show, 11 in the morning, Monday through Friday on Rotogrinders YouTube. Obviously, it's NBA. Now it'll be MLB in April, assuming that they're playing. But I think in terms of line, this is what I always say: lineups, not players. So it's like I'm looking at the numbers, the player projections. They include all the matchup information, all the sports stuff. I trust Cardi's blitz projections completely. It'll give me the range of outcomes, the floor and the ceiling, point per dollar, the ownership, and everything. And then I'm just researching lineups. What lineups look good? Because it's not like I just played the top one, right? Because I looked at this one and I said, okay, this is doable, right? But I've been scrolling down. I'm like, can I get a little bit more leverage? Can I get a little bit? Can I play? I want to play Kareem Hunt, because I looked at that one with the Higgins. I'm like, do you think Higgins, Landry, and 3 receivers get there and 2 running backs against each other? Like, I'm not a big fan of that necessarily. So I'm just looking like how much that's 145. So when I get to the lineup that I put a heart on, not a heart on. And like, how much did I sacrifice less than a point? And I'm like, okay, I get a pass catcher at least with Hunt. And I get all this.
You can still throw in Rams D there too if you want to leave $200 on the table.
True.
I love the Lineup HQ tool for that. It's up to you. I'm not saying you have to, but if you want to get another secondary stack in there, I don't think it's going to change it very much. You see what I mean?
Right, and I could get Akers and Rams defense together. Right, I could do that. Right, of course. Or you play the Ravens against, you're playing the Ravens against your receiver because less people are going to do that.
Yeah.
But this is what lineup HQ to me is for. Even if you're not building, like I said, I'm building 5 lineups. I'm not going to be spitting out a CSV and pasting it in. I'm not that lazy. I could actually go onto my phone and or the desktop screen and like manually put in the players. But I'm going through, and this is how I'm building even my single entry and 3 max type of lineups. I'm using lineup HQ as a research tool and not necessarily just a builder.
And that's what I talk about with the virtual hand build, I call it. Like I said, this is exactly what I'm doing. I'm scrolling through and what do I like and what stands out? And, can I get that give and take we talked about with the ownership versus the projection, what I like, what makes sense? That lineup you tagged up, I believe it was Sans Singletary, right? So you didn't have him in there, and he's going to be extremely popular and one of those guys that just is everybody's all over as sort of a natural must have. And that's another unique piece. While you still have other chalk pieces, that was one example where, like I said, it's just you're going away from something that, again, if you look at the top lineup, that's kind of where that 2 points or 1 point comes from, because they're giving it to him based on his situation with injury to Moss and all those other factors. But realistically, what can he do? You will have to wait and see. He's $4,500. I think I can see a lot of people using him in cash for the obvious reasons based on that. But in tournaments, I love getting off that and moving away from him some.
Yeah, if you like this type of analysis, hit the thumbs up button. We haven't kind of hoard out the typically me. You hear me say this like 4 times a show, 5 times a show. I don't got apple juice. I got soda, so there's nothing to keep cold. I guess it's kind of cold. I needed some caffeine. So hit that thumbs up button. I hit the heart button. So you hit the thumbs up button so we can get some likes on this. So if there's any QQs, post them in the YouTube chat. I know Eric Johnson asks if you're just playing the Saturday slate, who you're more likely to super stack.
I'd wonder if you think it's as necessary. I guess for me, the Saturday slate is, I think about it as FanDuel because they split it up first. Obviously, DraftKings has it as well. So again, look at the slate and go dependent. But for me, when I looked at FanDuel this morning, I thought about it and I was like, it's just plug in the touchdowns because there's so many guys. And now I got to go back and look because the Cup news, not that I was going to change anything for sure, but I think, Woods would be interesting because that's sort of what he does. Maybe that can get you off of it. But I just think, I like to set it up and base it off the site that I'm on as well, not just on who are the plays, right? So look at it that way. So you can check it out here if you want, Blender. We could go through some of that.
But for FanDuel?
Either 2-game slate. It doesn't matter where. I was just saying the example of showing off some of the 2-game slate. We've got about
okay. I mean, if we do the same thing, let me go to my stack rules. I'll do the same exact thing that I did before, right? Put in 3 here and 1 there. And let's go just I'll pump it up to 100 lineups. This is without the Cup news has not been reflected in projections yet.
Well, that's running, Blender. Do you know if there's still snow tonight? The chat asked.
Is there still snow?
Is there still going to be snow in Buffalo, Baltimore?
I don't even know. I don't pay it. The weather's already factored into the projections. I don't know. I don't know. Is there? So I'm building 100 lineups now for the 2-game slate. Let's see what these look like.
We left it for DK, I believe. Yeah, it's perfect. We left it for DK.
This is for DK. Yeah, ton of basically the Bills Ravens game.
Yeah,
right.
All for EJ here. We'll get DK only. We'll get it going here. This looks good.
Right. So 133 is the highest for Goff. Allen, the highest is 135. Oh, you're not old. So it's a 2-point range. But like the highest lineup is basically, I mean, you have to go nuts. I mean, you have to play Rams. You have to play 4 Rams in order to do this. I think this is kind of screwed up a little. Did I get the right settings here? I'm just getting. That's why it's hard to do on 2 games. No, I have to put in 100%. Okay, hold on. Not 10,000%. Okay. Now let's see what it is. So I'm like, how am I getting 4 Rams in a lineup that are supposed to be super stacks? Although you can make those lineups, they'll be unique. I mean, I don't know who's going to do that. Yes, I'll play all the Rams and not Jared Goff. I'll play 3 Rams receivers and have someone else. Okay, now we're getting it. Okay. Yeah, as I expected, Josh Allen, right. Right, Allen, Singletary, Beasley, Diggs, Knox, right? You want all of them, right? So this would be like the top lineups. But this is what I'd be more likely to do because people don't stack enough. Because what they're going to do, what someone normally is going to do on a 2-game slate is go, I'm going to play Allen plus Beasley plus Diggs, and then be like, okay, and then what else? Let me put one here. One like, no, how about Allen, Singletary, Beasley, Diggs, and Knox? Right.
Well, what about the narrative though of John Brown, because the revenge game against the Ravens, right? Go back and run it back, and the flop leg that you'd get with him. What about that narrative?
Okay, well, let's see. Where's the highest lineup for Brown? Okay, Brown still shows up in 100 lineups, 18%. Okay, 126. You're not giving up that much. So yeah, here you go. What's wrong with this lineup? Allen, Singletary, Brown, Diggs, Knox, Andrews in the flex as the run back, Devontae Adams in the first game, and Cam Akers. This goes together, and the Rams defense. And you're leaving 1,200 on the table.
That's a beautiful build. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna save it. Done. I'm gonna play this on the 4-game slate.
Okay. On the 4-game slate now. Nice.
Why not? I mean, this is a super duper stack, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4 pass catches. Because that's a way to get unique with John. Because the problem with playing Josh Allen is that you're going to play a chalk stack. Like, look how chalky this lineup is. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. But once you have Dawson Knox at 5% and you're playing 4 of them, like maybe the Ravens defense completely breaks down.
It could also be unique too if you put in not that lineup with that many guys in it, but I think a unique way to use on this slate would be Lamar Jackson with Buffalo guys, because he just basically does everything for the Ravens. It could just be a Lamar only game. He barely passes the ball, or just use Lamar, Andrews, and use a couple of the Bills guys, because they're going to be more PPR guys. Like Stephon Diggs, could he get loose here? Absolutely. But it's nothing to do with matchup. I don't care about that. I'm talking just about how is he more likely to be used is 7 or 8 quick catches. Maybe he gets 10 yards on each, or enough to get him the bonus, but doesn't end up being the guy that gets in the end zone. And you could still use that, because Lamar would be different from most people are stacking with Allen on that side of the game. Lamar could beat Allen, yet those stack pieces still could be utilized in a game that, in this 2-game slate I'm talking about, where both games could definitely go under. For example, you don't have that many fantasy points. Look at the medians. They're already projecting much lower than what we saw for the 4-gamer. So I think that's a unique way to go about it that not as many people will think about.
Right. I mean, I think Marquis Brown may be a little overowned on the 2-game slate, because the past 2 games he's actually done stuff. But we've seen weeks and months of nothing. I mean, right? I mean, and then obviously I have to bring up the wide receiver cornerback matchup. Oh, Trenavius White. Am I scared of him? I mean, but it's just a matter of, like, if I'm going to run it back with a Bill stack, I'm more likely to go with Andrews. I'm more likely to, I mean, I don't mind the double tight end, because less people will do it. This is what I mean by I can be different without leaving $7 million on the table. Like double tight end, running defense versus your offensive player. Like, we'll see. I go back to the Thanksgiving slate. Go back to last week. Go back to a lot of these short slates. Look at the lineup that wins. You rarely see the 1.7% owned guy that no one played put up 30 points. You take a look at the lineup and go, why didn't I build that? Like, and it's not duplicated. So to me, this lineup makes sense. Of course, you're stacking with 4 of his teammates, but you're also playing Akers and Adams, and that's a secondary stack against this is most probably still going to be unique. Or 3 people may have it or something, just due to the construction, even playing this chalky. So,
and the options with the $1,200 that John Brown can be Gabe Davis. It can be Beasley. You could swap Diggs out if you think he's a little bit overowned and go down to one of those guys.
You can put Marquis Brown there,
yeah.
Right? A lot of people will put Marquis Brown and do that because they have, and then play the 2 run backs, but that'll be more duplicated.
Yeah, your ownership there dropped by 20%, but your projection only dropped by 1.5 or so. So it's just to show again, you give and take there. Yeah, you lost a little bit of projection, but who cares? 1.5, your ownership dipped almost 20%. That can give you the upside, and at the same time, you just got Marquise Brown. It's not like you went to some scrub. He could be this week's scrub. We don't know who's going to be the 0 for us this week that does it to us, but it's always out there, right? We know someone's always going to mess things up for us. Whatever, everything looks so perfect, and then it's not in the end. So that's just showing you ways you can go about it, right? Versus giving you the exact who's who of every play.
Right. And someone in chat is asking, they're new to DFS, which is fine. Great. Welcome to DFS. If you're not playing anyone from today's games, Like just plug in players from tomorrow's games and make your lineups tomorrow. I mean, like there's no requirement at lock. You have late swap on both sides. So let's say you're like, I'm going to completely fade the Rams game and I don't even know the order of the games anymore. The Baltimore Buffalo game. I'm just going to play. Basically, I'm playing Browns, Chiefs, and like kind of the lineup that I was playing before, just without Akers in it. Like you don't have to make a decision yet. Right? You could just put in and you could put in Dion Yelder as long as you wake up on time, right? As long as you don't sleep in for the day. Put in just guys from tomorrow's games and just and have fun watching. It's not a very fun watch, Tambo, right? When you're watching the opposite sweat is never as fun as the negative sweat.
Right. We had this debate the other day actually on a pod. I forget what it was, but somebody mentioned the same thing. Some people for whatever reason like hoping for something to go wrong, like we just talked about, where they don't play anybody from the first game. And I told you why I'm doing it. Totally different reasons. You just mentioned that about building up later and doing the thing as the person mentioned in chat, like said, welcome to DFS. But the other people like to just hope to go like cheer against Akers, cheer against the guys in the first game. Adams, come on, Ramsey, crush them or whatever they're looking for. Some people like that. I personally like to see it go up. I don't like to cheer against. I don't like the anti-sweat. What about you?
Well, it obviously depends on my lineups, but
yeah.
But which is the worst feeling, though? Because there's two different types of feelings. There's one, let's say in this first game, for instance, MVS, someone like that, 4 for 157 and 2 touchdowns. You know, if you don't have him, you're pretty close to laptop. Like you're playing the min cash. You're playing you ain't gonna win a GPP. There's gonna be no $1 million sweat for you. Like you have none of that anymore. Or do you prefer the one where you play him, like you play one line, you play Devontae Adams, and he gets 21 points? And you're like, that could be good. That could not be. Like, you're not sure. Like, let's say he's a snowflake. Let's say you do play Cam Akers, he only gets 9 points. Like, there's still hope there that it's such a low-scoring slate that a Cam Akers 9 is still in the winning lineup. So do you prefer the false hope, or the I know I'm not going to win first place today after the first game? Like, why do I even bother watching the other 3 games? I can't possibly win.
Yeah, I'm an optimist. I'll always cheer for I'm still okay. I could still be okay. I definitely don't want the 0 in there and then you're done, right? Like you said, or the guy that goes off for 25 and then you're done. I hate that because it's like you said, on to the next slate, basically. Now I'm building for the 2-gamer on Sunday. It's over.
Yeah, but that's why I like NFL Sundays, where all the games are on at the same time. So it's like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
By the time you figure out who you need, at least eight games are going on at the same time. NBA is all iterative, right? Yeah. We see that
producer Devin producer Devin says he loves the NBA late hammer. That's what he's all about, right? Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, but it is kind of fun when you've got it, right?
Now, people sweat the first rotation in NBA.
Oh, I know.
That makes no sense. It's like, a guy that's 7,700 who goes off in the first 8 minutes with 17, 18 points. No X, no cash. It's like, dude, we've seen these situations. The game blows out and Jaylen Brown up 37. That's it. You're done. No last rotation. So even in these first games, breaking the slate, it depends on the relative score of the entire slate. So yes, if the Packers and Rams game is 42-35 and you have none of it, you ain't winning, right? But if
this was 2 games, the 2-gamer a couple weeks ago when Brady sat at the half, everyone you saw it all over Twitter. Everyone in the chat, Discord was like, that's okay. At least he's sitting now at 28, 29 or whatever he had, because I've got Kyler and Kyler's going to crush it today. He's a rushing quarterback and he's going to do his thing. At least the hope was there. He absolutely did not crush it. By the way, for the spoilers back then, it was Tom Brady day and it was over, but the hope was there, Blender, because they still had Kyler in that afternoon game and anything could happen.
And anything could happen today. So, as always, if you're in my contests, I hopefully you're not playing that lineup that I showed, because you're going to duplicate me. I am going to play that lineup. I don't lie, right? I looked at that and said, why not? Why don't I play that lineup, right? So I'm going to play that lineup. Hopefully if you're in the same contest at me, I don't want you to win. I want me to win, right? So, but you can come in second if you want. I only have one lineup in there. Hit the thumbs up button on the way out the door. We'll be back tomorrow, before about an hour before the 2-game slate tomorrow. So we'll be talking a lot about what nutso lineups you have to make in order to be unique on a 2-game slate.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you have any last words before we get out of here?
No, I think you did. I like this style, actually. To be honest, we talked before the show. I said, why don't you just take this one over, Blender, and give us a preview of what's to come? I like that a lot more because you guys will be able to use it not only for today, there's still plenty of time left, but you'll be able to use this going forward, tomorrow, all these different ways that he just showed of ways to look at it. Someone said Blender dropping nuggets. I agree, right? Love your stuff. Love when you're going through it, showing off the strategy side of things and not just people think, oh, play whoever you want. He just says play anyone. No, it's showing off how to play and ways to get yourself a chance to get in the top. I always say it. You got to have the skills, the knowledge to put yourself in the position to get lucky. That's what it comes down to. And then you want those 1%er finishes, and eventually they'll flip on your side and roll over, and you'll win a tournament as well. So thank you guys. You can follow me on Twitter at Totag and Tambo. Hit me up there if you guys have any questions in the Discord, whatever. Keep the sports card stuff going. We're going to have a lot of shows coming up for myself, sports cards, golf, PJ's back. So we've got all that, Blender, but we'll be back on tomorrow. You and I'm excited.
Right. Dropping nuggets. Hopefully for my sakes, it's golden nuggets and not chicken nuggets, but we'll see. It's going to take, we're going to have to wait until the end of the
why not tomorrow. Both? That's the why not both one.
Golden
right
chicken nuggets?
No, golden nuggets and chicken nuggets. I'll take both, please. That'd be delicious.
As long as it comes with barbecue sauce, I'm fine.
That's right. You know the sauce too. Perfect. Thank you guys. So
until tomorrow, this has been the lineup HQ / crunch time / Grinderslive pre-lock show for the 4-game NFL divisional round slate on DraftKings and FanDuel on Rotogrinders.com.